We're traveling to great literary and iconic film destinations in Yorkshire in northern England. If you're a fan of British literature, visiting sites where movies have filmed, or perhaps just love a good plate of fish and chips, you're going to want to listen to this podcast on Yorkshire, England. We're visiting quintessentially British villages, including where the Bronte sisters wrote Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre, and stopping in a pub in an area where the hit movie Calendar Girls filmed, to meet the real-life Calendar Girls.
Just doing the calendar gave me something to do and to think about. We had no idea what was going to happen to us in the next 17 years. We were going to have a film, a stage show, and now a musical.
If you've ever wondered where some of our great literary icons garnered their inspiration, or wanted to walk amid the landscapes or step into their homes, keep listening, because we're visiting famous locations in Great Britain in this episode of the Travels with Darley podcast. We're starting in West Yorkshire, amid the old stone homes and cobblestone streets of the charming village of Haworth, known by many as Bronte country. We'll walk amid the rolling moors where the Bronte sisters, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne, were inspired to write great works of literature, including Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre. There's no better way to truly understand their lives and inspiration than to visit Bronte Parsonage, where the family moved when their father became vicar in 1820. The Bronte sisters lived at a time when their station in life, as well-educated young women, dictated that they would become governesses, which they did. But after the loss of their aunt, the three girls came back to the parsonage to look after their father. And it was then, all together at home, that they would write some of their most spectacular works, of course, under male pseudonyms. In Patrick Bronte's study, Ann Dinsdale gives further background on the family.
Patrick Bronte was the father of the Bronte sisters, and he would educate his daughters in this room. He'd come from an extremely poor background, and through his own hard work and ambition, he'd managed to educate himself. So he was very keen on passing on that education to his daughters, and he was keen to develop their talents.
What types of things did he have them reading and learning about?
Well, he was quite unusual in that he didn't censor their reading. So they were familiar with the Bible, but they were also allowed to read the works of Lord Byron, which were considered very racy and very unsuitable for young ladies to be reading. And of course that had a huge effect on the novels they came to write.
How radical was it that these women, these sisters, were writing and publishing works at that time period?
It was extremely radical. It was not encouraged for women to write with a view to publication. And because of the kind of nature of some of the books that the Brontes themselves had read, that all fed into the writing that they produced. So their own novels were considered to be very shocking, and they challenged a lot of the social conventions of the period.
Using male names, the Bronte sisters went on to boldly publish 3 books in the same year, 1847. Charlotte's Jane Eyre, Emily's Wuthering Heights, and Anne's Agnes Grey.
This is the dining room at the parsonage, and this is where the Bronte sisters would have done all their writing, or most of it, and actually on this very table that you can see in the room. And we have Anne's writing desk on the table.
When would they have found time to do their writing? Because I know they were quite busy.
Yeah, they had to find time to do the writing in and amongst all the household tasks. I mean, we've got needlework boxes and things. There's a lot of sewing and cleaning and so on that took up a lot of their day. But it was mainly in the evening, after the rest of the household had retired to bed, that the sisters would do their writing in this room and discuss their writing as they walked around the dining room table.
It's neat to think of them as apparently definitely so passionate about what they were doing that they would make the time to do it when they had all of this other work, but then collaborating together here in this room.
Yeah, and this is the room where the great novels would have been written.
An inspiring room, an inspiring house.
A very inspiring house.
If that story doesn't kick your personal goals into high gear, taking a stroll up to the moors, where the girls often walked, and the setting for their novels will. Past the chapel where Emily, Charlotte, and their father are buried, through the gate, and past an old stone fence, you can walk up to the rugged, unforgiving moors, the striking lands that inspired Emily to write, "The clouds rush dark and wild. They fleck with shade our mountain heights, the same as long ago."
We're just a short walk from the Bronte family home, and I can imagine the Bronte sisters coming up here on a bleak, cold winter morning and walking through these moors and getting inspired to write. If you look out along the moors, you see these unforgiving, raw, dramatic, and beautiful landscapes.
Take the time to walk and listen, and you might be inspired too. Just down the road from the Brontes, we're heading to meet another inspirational group of women. You may know them as the Calendar Girls, because they're the subject of a 2003 movie starring Helen Mirren and Julie Walters. These Yorkshire women banded together in 1998 when Angela Baker's husband John died of leukemia at the age of 54. They posed nude and created a calendar of photos to raise money for leukemia research. The calendar, their story, and fundraising efforts have been a smashing success. In a small Yorkshire village that a few still call home, we sit down to dish.
Well, you all have had amazing success with everything that you've done so far. What has surprised you the most about how successful this has been?
Well, I think what surprised us the most was the fact that people wanted to buy our calendar with us on it, naked.
Middle-aged women in the nude, members of the Women's Institute, the reasons that we did it in memory of John, and the humour behind it, because it was done. We were laughing at ourselves. We didn't do it because we thought we were gorgeous. We were laughing at ourselves.
I think it was a shock as well to the general public that the older ladies dare do this. You know, because nudity is just really for the glamorous and the young, and here we were, middle-aged and not glamorous.
Now, one reason that I wanted to do this podcast was to share the backstory on so many interviews I've done over the course of my filming around the world to create over 100 hours of programming for PBS. For over a decade, I've traveled the world with just 3 other people in my crew to produce our TV series. This is small for a TV team, but we always try to do big things, even on a small budget. Whether we're filming from a helicopter that we've bartered to be able to use to document wildlife from above in Botswana's Okavango Delta, or landing celebrity interviews like skiing with Olympian Johnny Mosley in Tahoe, or interviewing George R.R. Martin, the creator of Game of Thrones. For this interview, I thought I was meeting Tricia Stewart, one of the real-life Calendar Girls, but upon arriving at the cozy inn and pub, the Fontaine Inn in the Yorkshire Dales, we realized that 5 of the real-life Calendar Girls had shown up. Now, you might think this is a great score for a fledgling TV host and producer, but we travel with just 2 wireless microphones. So now we had the challenge at this small pub and restaurant of interviewing these 5 women with just 2 mics. We had to figure out how we would actually record the audio for all of their responses, because we wanted to interview them as a group. Oh, and I need a microphone too. So to do this interview, we had the 5 ladies sit around a table in the corner of a restaurant. We had 2 microphones in coffee cups to capture their audio in real time. My questions, however, and responses, I actually had to remember and redo following the initial interview to capture my sound later. Not easy if you're a journalist and not an actress. And I actually had to ask the questions after the ladies had left the pub post-interview.
Okay, we are rolling.
Okay. To go about their busy lives. That's me getting the giggles as I try to re-ask my questions while staring at the pub's wall while the camera rolls. But the interview, as you'll continue to hear, went great. The 5 ladies were also coordinated, wearing their black dress suits and white pearl necklaces with sunflower pendants on their suit jackets. The yellow from the sunflowers matched the yellow wallpaper, which was covered in black and white images of foxes, boars, and other British countryside wildlife.
Well, this obviously brought out a little bit of each of your rebellious side. Was this the first time that you all showcased that side of you?
No.
That's why
No.
people weren't really that surprised with it.
No.
I had done stuff before and we'd...
No, Trish has wild ideas, and we usually go along with her. So, you know, we went along this time, and
We would
There we
never
are.
have done it if John hadn't become
No.
ill. It would have stayed a joke because we did joke about it a lot. It was for a couple of years before John was ill.
Well, my mom passed early on, and it made me realize that we just don't have a lot of time.
well, for me, I mean, we just doing the calendar gave me something to do and to think about. We had no idea what was going to happen to us in the next 17 years. We were going to have a film, a stage show, and now a musical was going to happen. But, you know, it was a family tragedy. You know, John was only ill for 5 months. It was such a shock when he died. And out of that tragedy, we've done something so positive. And we've raised, you know, £4 million for our charity, Bloodwise. So for me, and I'm sure for the girls as well, and my family, it's just kept us going.
Well, it seems to me, and I've only just met all of you, you're like a family unit yourselves.
Oh, I couldn't exist without these girls.
Much of the filming for the Calendar Girls movie took place in Yorkshire, including in Skipton, a town with one of the best fish and chips restaurants in England, Busy Lizzie's. The iconic scenery can also be enjoyed in the Yorkshire Dales National Park, where guests can stay in historic lodging and explore the natural side of northern England. Walking trails abound, including in and around Bolton Abbey, where the ruins of a 12th century Augustinian monastery invite travelers to wander through the past. Artists and poets, including Turner, Ruskin, and Wordsworth, all created works based on Bolton Abbey. And in addition to the ruins, an active church remains in use today. There's so much to love about Great Britain, and discovering our world with locals as the guides. Thanks for traveling to Northern England with me on the Travels with Darley podcast. And look for the companion to this podcast, the Travels with Darley TV series, on your local PBS TV station and streaming around the world. We've filmed a lot of episodes with a lot of great travel tips. And follow me on the socials for posts in real time from the road. I'm Darley Newman, and I appreciate sharing the world with you.